Avery, you'll let us know when you're all set. Brian, looks like we're now live.
Wonderful, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Moffitt, and I would like to welcome you to the meeting of the Asheville Downtown Commission for August 12th, 2022. The Asheville Downtown Commission was created by the City Council for the sustainability and continued development of downtown, a vital urban center of Western North Carolina's economic, cultural, and visitor activity. The Downtown Commission provides City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. In addition, downtown commissioners currently fill 4 out of 9 seats of the city's Design Review Committee, which reviews development projects within the Central Business District, the River Arts District, and hotel projects outside of those areas. The Downtown Commission also has the opportunity to provide input on projects outside of the scope of design review. All committee members and staff are participating virtually, maybe for the last time. We appreciate your patience as we continue to work through this way of doing meetings. We are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website. This is also linked on the Asheville Downtown Commission's webpage. We have an option for the public to listen live by phone, and for anyone out there with us today, welcome. At this time, I'll go through and introduce the committee members who are participating. You all know the drill. Please remember to mute your microphone. If you're not speaking, unmute when you need to speak. And committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Andrew Fletcher, have I seen him come in? No. Tal Frankfurt. Quorum's going to be fun. Kimberly Hunter. I heard from her.
Good morning.
There we go. Stephen Lee Johnson.
Good morning.
Great. Robin Raines is not available. Megan Rogers. I hear
Morning.
you. Yeah.
Sorry, morning.
No, that's good. Guillermo Rodriguez.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ricardo. Say hello.
Good morning.
Sorry. Ruth Summers. I saw Miss Ruth.
Good morning.
There we go. And it's Sage Turner, our City Council liaison. I see Sage. She's smiling at me on the screen. So Sage is here. Very good. I think that's a quorum, everybody. So at this time, we will go through and approve our minutes. You should have all received draft action minutes from our July 8th, 2022 meeting. Are there any revisions or alterations, additions? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move, Summers.
I move to approve. I'll second that.
Thanks, Gio.
This is Guillermo Rodriguez.
Yeah. So I'll go through the roll call. Andrew's not here. Tal's not here. Kimberly?
Aye.
Thank you. Stephen Lee?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Gio?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
I'm an aye, sorry. Ruth?
Aye.
And Sage?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. First of all, thank you for everyone for attending. We actually weren't sure we were going to need a commission meeting this month, but we need to review the bike lanes and give the public a chance to comment. So wanted to thank everyone for coming in. We have received some public comment, which we will go over when we are addressing the Biltmore Avenue restriping issue. So we'll talk about Biltmore Avenue restriping. We'll talk briefly about some discussions we've been having regarding downtown design guidelines. So with that, I'll go ahead and let Jessica Morris is with us today and can speak to the Biltmore Avenue restriping project. Take it away.
Good morning, thank you. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you guys. I'm Jessica Morris. I'm the Assistant Director of the Transportation Department. I really appreciate you guys holding this meeting today. I've got some updates for you and some information to share. And I'll go through as quickly as I can the memo that was sent out to you guys earlier which I recognize not everybody's probably had a chance to read it, which is okay, because I'm going to just kind of walk through it, and that will be the presentation. So as you guys know, this proposal, this project is part of a larger project that is an NCDOT project. They are going to be repaving much of 25, which includes Merriman Avenue from the north to the Woodfin City line, all the way down Merriman, under I-240, onto Broadway, and then onto Biltmore, all the way to Southside Avenue. So pretty much everything in downtown on that stretch, you're going to see being repaved here sometime in the fall. I don't have an exact schedule yet, but we're hoping to get that from DOT soon so that we can share that information with you guys, because there will obviously be some logistical impacts and transportation impacts while it's happening. But anyways, we have been working with them, as you know, on Merriman Avenue, where NCDOT decided after some significant public input to do a lane reduction on Merriman Avenue north of W.T. Weaver. And so we also had been talking to them about a similar lane reduction for the section of Biltmore Avenue between Patton and Hilliard. And basically the impetus for this conversation is that whenever there's a repaving project, they also have to restripe the whole roadway. So we tried to take those opportunities to look at whether we can make changes to the lane configuration, also parking and loading. And part of why we do this is because we are able to leverage the opportunities to try to advance some city goals as it relates to multimodal transportation safety overall. And so the proposal is to add bicycle facilities to this section of the road. And since we can't change the width of the road, the only way that bicycle facilities could potentially be added is by removing one of the two southbound vehicle lanes and narrowing the northbound lane, which is currently pretty wide. And so if we take the southbound lane out, narrow the northbound lane, then we are able to fit two 6-foot bike lanes in the cross section. We have a number of city plans and policies that support this in terms of adding additional bicycle facilities. Besides the comprehensive plan, there is specific mention of adding bicycle facilities to this section of roadway in the Asheville in Motion mobility plan. There is some additional support in our complete streets policy. And although our Asheville comprehensive bike plan is quite old, it also had some recommendations for Biltmore as well. So, besides just adding bike facilities, there's a lot of goals that this supports in terms of affordability, community health, sustainability, and since, we have some pretty high affordability or pretty bad affordability issues here, we're trying to add options for transportation so that folks that can't afford a car or don't want to drive a car or can't drive a car have options. So we've done some public outreach, albeit very limited in time and scope. It was not the most ideal public outreach engagement process that we've ever done, and I fully accept that and admit that. So over the last month or so, we've tried to really hunker down and get to have conversations with folks in the business district in that corridor. So here is a list of what we have done. We also have a link here to all of the public comments that I've personally received via email. And so you have access to that spreadsheet, which has, I think, almost 75 public comments from different individuals. I think if I had to summarize what we've heard, I would say, of course, it's split. I would say that business owners that we've heard from that have businesses on that corridor, I would say the majority are opposed. And then I would say that the vast majority of the other comments that we've received, which many of them, most of them are not necessarily business owners on the corridor, we've received support. So as usual, anytime we have a bike lane project proposed, it's pretty split. But what I would say is that, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of the comments and concerns that we've heard have been, in this case, centered on loading and unloading activities. So right now, it's pretty often or pretty frequent, you will see delivery vehicles on this section of Biltmore that are unable to find a loading zone, either available or one that they can fit in. And so the practice has been that these delivery vehicles will stop in the outside lane, so right next to the parking lane, double park, and do their unloading activities. And so the business concern has been related primarily to that, and that if we take away the extra southbound lane, then this could significantly impact the ability for their delivery trucks to do what they need to do. We have heard other concerns as well. I would say the concerns are very similar to others that we hear whenever we are looking at a lane reduction. So concerns about congestion, concerns about emergency access, concerns about safety. And so, we wanted to include all of that and summarize that as well in this memo. But as far as loading zones are concerned, I just want to say that whether or not
Jessica,
bike lanes...
real quick, would you mind pulling up the actual A1 and A2 diagrams while you're talking through the memo? That might help.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Hold on one moment. So yeah, good point. So we're going to talk about loading zones. So whether or not bike lanes get installed, we want to try to help the situation with loading. We can't probably fix everybody's loading. We can't give everybody their own loading zone. But what we want to try to do is address the root of that problem and provide some additional loading spaces. So the two documents that are linked here, A1 and A2, it shows not only the proposed striping plan, which includes the bike lanes, but we've also included in here the loading zone. So the orange ones are existing, and then blue is meant to represent new. So you'll see some that are blue and orange, and that is essentially saying we're going to make a loading zone bigger by adding some additional links onto one of the ends of it. So we've added several loading zones, or we're proposing to add several loading zones in the corridor. I'll pull up A2. And so we haven't added it as much on the more southern section, so south of Aston. We've had many conversations with the Orange Peel and with Wicked Weed. Their needs are somewhat unique, and then also, I would say, exacerbated by the curve here in the road and the proximity to this signalized intersection. No matter how the road is striped, their specific needs and are going to essentially, we can't give them their own loading zone. That would be a legal loading zone. So what we're going to do is work with both of them to come up with a traffic control plan that really would just take what they're doing right now, which is they have to block a lane with their trucks. They put out cones to try to direct traffic. And what we're going to do is work with them to make that slightly more formalized. It's not meant to add any additional burden to them, but we're going to work with them to come up with a signage and plan for setting out cones and signs to make it a little bit more safe and kind of give them, a permit essentially to authorize what they've been doing forever and seems to be working just fine. So this is our attempt to help with the loading problem. And again, this would be with or without bike facilities. These new loading zones would go in with the restriping and hopefully help that situation. Oops, I think I stopped sharing. Feel free to jump in if you guys have questions. So it's not super formal here.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. Jessica, we're talking about loading zones, and my concern is that there's just no way to enforce who uses loading zones downtown. And I think it's part of a bigger discussion, but
yeah,
has there been any, are there any additional ideas about how those loading zones can be restricted to just those that are actually loading and not people that just want to park and stay there all day? Because that's what's happening.
I know. So yes, this is a downtown wide conversation. And I actually just had a meeting yesterday with our enforcement staff and Ken Putnam. It's tricky because we obviously want to allow like the Cisco's of the world delivery vehicles to use those spaces, but then there's business owners that are using their own personal vehicle, right? So how do you distinguish between that personal vehicle that a business user is a business owner is using versus somebody who's just abusing it? I think that we have to, for the whole downtown, explore how do we address that. I don't know if like some kind of permitting system is the way to do it. Maybe it's something really simple, like you sign up for a sticker or a hang tag or something for your personal vehicle as a business owner, and then we have a better way of making that distinguishing between those two. We are going to be demoing soon it's called a LPR system, license plate recognition, which sounds scary, but it's a way that our enforcement team can quickly just determine how long a vehicle has been in a loading zone automatically. And that is one way that we might be able to have better enforcement, as well as enforcing that 30-minute limit. Right now, it's really hard for our enforcement staff to enforce that 30-minute limit because they would have to write down this car and remember to go back 30 minutes later. So we're going to be demoing a system for that in a few months. And I think that's a tool that we really need regardless. But you're not wrong, Stephen Lee. Like, that's a big problem we've got.
Don't you use a similar system right now for enforcement on like the blue tag, the blue spaces? Because we don't have tags anymore for Aston. They just use our license plate.
Yeah, we don't have the technology, or we don't have the tech system with that. I think they're literally just doing that by some kind of database on a lap or on a iPad or something. But that's another use for the license plate recognition system, is that you can drive by, it basically like scans your license plate, says, yes, this person's got a permit, or this person has been there for longer than 30 minutes, and we're able to be a lot more efficient. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm Sage. I'm sorry, I jumped over you.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just share the feedback I've been hearing. So I'm both a Biltmore Avenue business owner and property manager, and probably for like half of that block. So Jessica's in a hard position because there's been some really rapid meetings and she's getting pretty attacked. But I'll share what I've heard from the businesses. There is a lot of concern. We're not actually concerned about the loading, the legalities, because that's just been our ongoing reality. But keeping and maintaining and even growing some was helpful. My big concern I keep hearing is the lack of a turn lane. And there's some confusion, people reaching out to me saying, why is council voting on Merriman Avenue and Charlotte Street bike lanes, but not Biltmore? Why is this one just being forced on us? Why is there only one option? So the suggestions I heard at both the meetups and following meetings and phone calls were that do one bike lane and one turn lane and somehow make it work. And I think the feedback we've heard is that there's some points where the curb to curb is too narrow and maybe there's some creativity or something. But I'll just share, I sure wish we were looking at more than one option. I think I also heard in one of the meetings that the impact is about $20,000. And if we wanted to slow down, I think the businesses requested a trial to say, hey, could this work? Could it be a little different? And what would be the cost if it failed? And that was like 20 grand. But just sharing, there is some concern. I do, since I work on Biltmore, it actually doesn't impact our businesses and our tenants as much because our on-street parking is pretty stable, but it is gridlock. Anytime someone tries to turn already, or it just backs up to Pack Square. So if we don't have any turn lanes, it's going to be a little messy. And that's not what we did on Charlotte or Merriman. So I'm confused about the process as well. Just wanted to share that input, and I've emailed staff as well. I think at this point, it's just a staff decision.
Do you need Jessica to respond to that, or we just need to go on to Megan? What do you
No,
think?
I'm just kind of relaying, and Megan probably has more to share from the businesses, just so you all know as the commission how the businesses down there felt about it.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Megan.
Thanks. Sage shared a couple of the concerns that I'm hearing. I've heard directly from some folks. I also sat on a meeting, I think last week, with Jessica and a few business owners. And then we had a few folks attend our board meeting earlier this week, just on Wednesday. And as Jessica mentioned, the majority of the businesses on the street are opposed at this time. And I want to be clear, they're not opposed to multimodal transportation or bike lanes in general, just really the process and the concerns that they weren't able to weigh in advance. The businesses really weren't asked for feedback until just a couple weeks ago. So, the process, I think, was mishandled. The other thing, loading is definitely the big activity. We just had a Hayward streetscape project where our office is, and we expanded some loading zones. We added some loading zones similar to what we're talking about, and we're still having large trucks blocking a travel lane because they're not able to get in and out of the spots here on Hayward Street. And with the number of restaurants that we have on Biltmore Avenue, just in that stretch, I mean, it's dozens of restaurants. I think we're going to see folks either blocking a travel lane or blocking the bike lane, which is also, both are illegal and both are unsafe. So if there is an opportunity to do a trial run and to put this, or to have a plan for basically removing something if it doesn't work, I think that would be something we should consider. That's all.
Yeah, I wish I could do a trial. And I don't know that we could, or like a tactical urbanism kind of thing. Like, I wish that I could do that. And I haven't been able to figure out a way to do that in a way that would be accurately reflective of what we're trying to do. I mean, I think, like you said, one thing that could be considered is the trial, just doing it and then reversing it if everybody is still upset about it. And so, yeah, that would be a budgetary impact, my estimate is that it would be about $25,000 to $30,000. That's the estimate that our traffic engineer gave me based on some other restriping projects that we've done. Feels a little low to me just because I don't know anything that caught, like, I think somebody said a kitchen remodel costs more than that. So I'm a little nervous that that might be low, but it isn't. I don't want to say it's an option. It's ultimately the city manager's decision, but that could be something that happens is if it is a reversal essentially and restriping. And I can speak to the city manager more about that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I don't have a hand raising function. Will someone tell me? This is Kimmy. Will someone tell me when I can maybe
Go ahead.
chime in for just
Jump
one
in.
second? I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
You're good.
Thank you for the presentation, and also really hearing public comment. I have two questions. One, is there a way, because I get that it's a monetary thing and it's a temporary thing and it's all these factors. Number one, how is like injury and or deaths, or accidents going to be measured or factored in should city manager choose to implement this? Because if there's not a temporary solution or a trial solution, and then there's an increase in, tickets to people who aren't violating, but they were ticketed anyway, or injuries or deaths, how's that going to be measured? So that's number one. And number two, did anyone consider, it's easy to say these things on the back end, I recognize, but it's truly just for support, creating a multimodal that stems from the greenways and all of those beautiful, we have so many really cool, intricate greenways that are starting to, intersect and have opportunity to be connected with bike lanes on asphalt and on the street level. Did anyone consider like reverse engineering from that perspective, as opposed to like slapping it down in the middle with some great feasibility studies, but rather having it come from the greenways? Thanks for listening and answering my questions.
Sure. Okay. So I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your first question very well or not. But we have crash records. I have not, and I probably should have looked up crash records for this stretch. My sense is that we don't really have a whole lot of what I'll say serious injury or fatality crashes, because in downtown speeds are generally low, although things are more, some people would consider chaotic, or another way to put it would be vibrant or active downtown, because we've got a lot of activity. Vehicles are traveling at slower speeds. It's less likely that you're going to have a serious injury or fatality crash. But all of that is to say that we do have the ability to look at before and after crash data. Typically, you don't want to just look at like a 3-month period or something, because there's not enough data to make it accurately have an accurate comparison. I would say, like, if we had some major incident that occurred after installing it, and we looked at the factors and consider contributing factors to that crash, if there were one, we could make a determination as to whether or not the project was the contributing factor to that. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Kimmy, so let me know if it didn't.
Sorry, I keep unmuting and muting. It doesn't quite, but I can appreciate what you're saying. I think that's a factor, right? When people say, business owners are saying it's unsafe, there's not turning lanes, loading zones, it's already highly congested. The first thing my brain goes to besides feasibility of the project itself is like, was there measurement, and will there be measurement for tracking injury, especially with multimodal that has no protection of like a vehicle surround? So that's kind of, I'm like, what is that data point? Is that like, public safety point? being factored into this project as a metric of like high importance?
Well, yeah, I would say that it is. And we can measure that afterward if it were to go in. I mean, I should say that, DOT, they had concerns about doing a lane reduction for Merriman. They had zero concerns about doing a lane reduction here. And primarily that's because the traffic volumes are much lower, and the traffic volumes to the north of College and Patton are pretty much the exact same volumes that you see south of Patton. And so from a traffic congestion standpoint and function safety standpoint, they had no concerns about this proposal because we'd essentially be mirroring the north side of Biltmore Avenue. And what's been said is that, well, there's a lot more restaurants and a lot more deliveries happening on the south side of College and Patton, on Biltmore, south of College and Patton. I don't know that's, I don't have data on that. I think like anecdotally, that's probably accurate. Our hope is that we can provide some more loading activity so that we're not having delivery drivers just double parking. So, I can't promise that our proposal at the moment for additional loading zones will fix all of the loading issues, but we do have the ability in-house to make adjustments to loading zones and parking spaces. And so that's something that we could continue to tweak if we need to, and as well as on Hayward as well, which I hear it continues to happen there. Your second question about reverse engineering. So let me share a tab. It's going to be a little hard to see, but what you're talking about is exactly what we do, except we're not really reverse engineering it. It's all being planned simultaneously. So we have a number of bike lanes in the downtown area. We have some planned bike lanes for the center portion of College and Patton between Pritchard Park and Biltmore. So we are in real time trying to put the network together. I wish I could just like plop down a connected network where bike lanes connect to greenways and vice versa, and everything falls into place perfectly. But obviously we can't do it that way. So what we're doing is when we have an opportunity to put something in to make another piece of the puzzle, that's the opportunity we're trying to take. So we've got bike lanes on Lexington. We've got bike lanes on Hilliard that connect all the way to Klingman, which connects all the way to the RAD. We're trying to make connections up to the Reed Creek Greenway. We've got bike lanes on MLK. So what you're saying, Kimmy, is exactly what we're trying to do, and that's what my whole transportation team is working towards with the GAP plans, with the AIM plan, is trying to make these connections.
Yeah, that's great. I really just wanted to like amplify the ability for you to say that and give more of that public awareness of the entirety of the idea. Not that there won't be problems in certain areas like we're discussing. And I have one last question. I don't mean to hog everyone, so thank you. But in terms of, and this is probably not a question for you, maybe for someone else, Todd, how does this particular plan in these corridors impact the widening of sidewalks for the future development, that 10-foot need? Thanks.
Sure. That's a great question. I think because if these are just restriping type projects, it might leave some flexibility there. Jessica, I'm not sure if there's any plans. I'm not aware of any plans in the works for currently for these corridors for any widened sidewalks, but I know that remains, certainly a challenge in downtown. I know something we've been looking at, and we're actually going to talk about this a little bit later this morning with design guidelines or design standards for downtown is whether or not we would want to consider in the future making any changes to setbacks, for example, for new buildings to be able to provide opportunities for wider sidewalks when we don't have the right-of-way room to do that within the public right-of-way, but there might be opportunities to, widen sidewalks partially on private property.
Yeah, I would just add that the double-edged sword of a bike lane addition just being paint, the good thing is that it's just paint and it can be changed, and it's not as significant as an investment as something like the rad tip, where we've got a awesome cycle track with a concrete separation. And so if there were a larger scale reconstruction plan, kind of like what was done with Hayward Street, then maybe we would make different choices about, okay, well, maybe bike lanes isn't great here, let's widen sidewalks. I don't know, but that's a much more significant, expensive project. And then the flip side of it only being paint is that it's not the most ideal bike lane. I would readily admit that. Of course, I would love to have a protected, separated with a concrete, buffer and all of those things. I think since low speeds are, since speeds are lower here, that kind of additional protection isn't necessarily it's not the recommendation that you see in the urban design bike guides. We are also working with DOT to assess the speed limit south of Aston. So the speed limit north of Aston is 20, and then the speed limit south of Aston is 35. I have no idea why, but they are going to look at that. They have indicated that they think that it's very likely we can have the speed limit reduced, potentially not to 20, but potentially to 25. I still haven't quite figured out why that section of Biltmore is considered different than the northern section. It's got just as much activity, in my opinion. But if we can get the speed limit down, hopefully that will result in people going slower. I will say that, the road diets are primarily a safety measure. They're not always about bike lanes. When you do a road diet, you get extra pavement width. You can plop in bike lanes, or you can widen sidewalks or whatever, but the primary purpose of them is to slow traffic. And slowing traffic leads to less injuries and fatalities. So if we reduce it from 2 lanes southbound to 1, it's probably going to result in slower speeds naturally, whether the speed limit is changed or not. And then, Kimmy, I wanted to follow up on one of your questions from the last Downtown Commission. And I'm sorry, I know I'm taking up some time here, but one of your questions was regarding whether people in wheelchairs would be able to use bike lanes. And I started a conversation with our city attorney's office about this question. As you can imagine, state law is not always like clear cut and dried. The city attorney's office thinks that we can pass a local ordinance that would clarify and allow people in wheelchairs, whether they're motorized or unmotorized, and potentially other types of mobility devices, to be able to use bike lanes, even if there is a sidewalk adjacent, because, quite frankly, not all of our sidewalks are 100% accessible. So that's a separate a separate effort, but I think that is something very worthwhile for us to pursue because it would, apply citywide, not just in this particular case.
Yeah, I saw that in the report. Thank you so much for stating that.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons that we should abolish the NCDOT delenda est. They shouldn't have control over our city streets. First of all, I want to make sure I understand, Jessica. So the timing and the rush and the process is really because we found out that DOT is repaving and we could kind of jump on and piggyback onto the work they're already doing. That's the reason the schedule and the process has gone kind of the way it's gone. Is that correct?
I would say partly yes, but I mean, just for transparency's sake, like we knew that they were repaving the road a couple years ago. We got, I think, as a staff across departments, got super consumed with the Merriman conversation. And we had talked to DOT about this particular section and the possibility of reconfiguring it back in a couple of years ago in the beginning. And they didn't have any issue with it. And then a few months ago, they said, well, we want to make sure that you've done public comment on this. And it was like, oh, yes, that is something that we should have done. And so it's really just, I don't want to say an oversight, but it's a resource and capacity issue for us. And so I like I said, I fully take the blame for not being able to do the level of effort that we should have done, and in a time frame that was more, better for everybody.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to let Megan speak, and then I want to just kind of walk through some of the public comments that both we received and that you received. Go ahead, Megan.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick points. The illegal loading activity, whether it's a travel lane, a bike lane, or even a fire lane in some cases, is going to continue unless there's some enforcement. I know you know that. I know it's challenging, but we can expect to see it on Biltmore Avenue as well. And then I think we've been focused on the bike lane part of this project, but I just want to remind everyone that this is a major repaving project through the middle of our downtown, and encourage Jessica, your team, to work really closely. We're happy to help on a communications plan so that the businesses and residents that are impacted by this major project are well informed. And then maybe we're getting to this, but I'm just curious as to when we anticipate a decision to be made about the restriping. Just like, what is that next step? Thank you.
Sorry, coughing fit. Originally they told me that today we needed to have a decision. But I know that I have at least till Monday now, because the person I was supposed to tell what the decision was is not in the office today. So I have a meeting scheduled Monday morning with the city manager and the assistant city manager to talk through this. And I'm going to share with Deborah this afternoon all of the public comment, this memo in particular, because I think it outlines most of it. And so I unless I hear differently from DOT, I think Monday is probably the decision day, but it's possible they could email me Monday morning and say, yeah, you've got another month or something. I'm not sure. And then on your point about, yes, this is a major project that's going to have logistics, and I've been really pushing them to get out information to us. And what I've been told, and this is very loose, is that all the work will happen overnight. I don't know what overnight means to them. I've also been told that they will not be fully closing any section of roadway at any time. So there should be at least, one traffic lane in each direction at all times. And this is for the whole stretch of US 25. I've been told that they're going to start at South Side and move north, but I don't know yet what that looks like and how quickly that happens. And then the other big part that is not really well known is that whenever there's a repaving project, whether it's the city or the state, they have to upgrade curb ramps that are not compliant. So there will be a component of this, and I think they've actually started doing some curb ramp work on Merriman. It's separate, but sort of happening at the same time. So there will be a component of this where there will be curb ramps ripped out and replaced, which is obviously going to have some sidewalk closures associated with it. And so I know that's another big potential impact to businesses. And so I'm trying my best to get them to give us the information. And I will say that it's not been super easy.
So we received three. I have three public comments we received either via email or transcript of a call. Do we have any other public comment or any callers on the line currently? Make sure we address public comment. Thank you, Avery.
Yeah, we do have several callers on the line.
Okay, so let me read or summarize. We have a comment from James Hauser regarding he's a owner of two properties and basically is objecting to these and would prefer just the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. We have one from David Scott, business owner at 19 Biltmore, and is not opposed based on reducing the lane reduction. We have one from Larry Weaver, who owns a downtown business and is familiar with this part of Biltmore Avenue, is also not in support. So if you could go ahead and then of course, I think Jessica linked to the public comments that were received that she has received, or the City of Asheville has received in the process as well. So Avery, if you don't mind going ahead and letting the caller speak, and I'm trying to remember the rules. Where is it? They have about 3 minutes for public comment. And so go ahead and let the first one go.
Sure thing. I'll bring in the first caller.
Now?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, is this the caller for public comment?
It is. It is not regarding the current agenda item, however. It's for an informal agenda item lower down. Can I make my comment on that now?
Go ahead and make your comment, and we'll just make a note of it, please. Thank you.
Okay. This is regarding the Duke Substation project. The MOU that the city and Duke have says they'll work together to mitigate visual impacts and remain consistent with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The mitigation plan shall include a screening buffering plan and other elements. That being the case, how would the city, including this commission, support a plan where Duke is asking for variances from all of the screening and buffering requirements that apply to everyone else? I'm opposed to this project as it is presented. It is not in keeping with the Downtown Commission's strategic plan and stated priorities. My name is Scott Fowler, and I'm with Friends of Lexington Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other callers, Avery?
Yeah, there are a couple more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm bringing in the second caller now.
Last quarter century. I oppose the Duke land swap. I am in favor of rebuilding the substation in its current location. The mayor's statement yesterday quoted aesthetics and safety as prime drivers, and that ought to end the land swap right now. Recall that Lexington Avenue was designated as one of the great places in America by the American Planning Association. Aesthetics removes beautiful forests, replacing them with a huge wall that deteriorates from day one, attracting graffiti and increases risk of flooding by replacing water-absorbing forests with hardscape. Safety, the high retaining wall and equipment and power lines on top, along with the feeder high voltage lines and pylons, makes the neighborhood and environs far less welcoming, leading to the creation of a heat island and opening up a likely increase in crime. Also, abandoned buildings when a neighborhood dies and its residents want to live, work, and visit there and don't want to be there anymore. Another drive would be the catastrophic decline in property values. It would indeed create the blight that pre-existed before the mall project of 1980 that would have consumed 11 square blocks of downtown. It also appears that there is economic benefit to the city and civic center as a major driver for moving the substation away from the civic center. No plans, costs, or anticipated income have been made public. Yet in their deliberations, both the Planning and Economic Development Commission and the City Council point out the loss of 35 monthly parkers as the only negative concern, while the aesthetic and economic impacts on Lexington are not considered. I also wonder how the city plans to fund an over $100 million renovation of the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. Would this be paid for by a general obligation bond, which would raise taxes? Over 60 businesses and 1,000 residents stand to lose, with 20 businesses directly impacted by 2 years of construction, which would involve the foundations and footings and building of the huge wall, likely seismic shaking, not to mention the placement of pylons on private property. The city has not considered and has no plans for relief from these losses, including the declines in property value, possibly driving some owners to abandon their properties. I might mention that I was eating dinner in the patio of Hayward restaurant, and it is magical, thanks in part to the wonderful song of the cicadas. This restaurant is on Lower North Lexington Avenue and would be right in front of the wall. And the cicadas bring the sound of the country into the city, and that song, and also the hopes and dreams and livelihood of the community and the beauty of its forest would be forever silenced if this land swap is consummated. Please end the land swap that looms over Lexington Avenue. Over 5,000 petitioners and counting at Save Lexington Avenue agree. Thank you for your time.
Do we have any public comment for the stuff we're actually talking about today?
We do have one more caller, but I don't know what they're planning
All
to
right.
speak about.
Go ahead and let them
Bring
in.
them
Thank you.
Yes, hello. I am calling in about the substation project. I'm opposed to the land swap and am in favor of Duke rebuilding the substation in its current location. The other day, I was at the site of the back of Harrah's Cherokee Center and the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. I looked down below to the current substation on Rankin and noticed how far below the substation actually is, about 20 feet. The substation has nothing to do with the back of Harrah's or Thomas Wolfe. In fact, there is a very large area below where Duke can rebuild and expand its current substation by including the 2 city surface parking lots on either side of the substation. There is plenty of room, more in fact than the 57 Rankin parking lot where Duke proposes to rebuild the substation. The city gives the reason for the swap as the Thomas Wolfe needs better access to the back of the house to put on bigger shows. But looking at it, if Duke removed the substation, how would it be possible to get a large truck with sets up from Rankin to the back of Thomas Wolfe? The grade is too steep to build a ramp. It makes no sense. Another reason the city gives for moving the substation is to have better access to Harrah's Civic Center for maintenance. From what I saw, Duke can renovate and rebuild in their current location, and it would leave plenty of room for the access to the back of Thomas Wolfe. I'm sure Duke can figure out easier access to Harrah's for maintenance. Rebuilding the substation in its current location would allow the city to renovate the Thomas Wolfe the way it would like, have access to the loading dock from Hayward Road next to the library, where there is currently plenty of room. Keeping the substation where it is would not harm the 60 businesses and 1,000 residents of Lexington Avenue, would not destroy the charming and historic Lexington Avenue neighborhood, and it would maintain the precious urban forest of Lexington Avenue. What may have initially looked good to the city and Duke on a map fails completely in reality. By simply moving the substation across the street means removing the trees which currently provide the perfect screening for the current substation, building a wall, having a giant eyesore that would loom over Lexington Avenue and be a hideous view for the whole community. Moving the substation to 57 Rankin parking lot would be detrimental to the Lexington Avenue neighborhood and the whole downtown Asheville. I'm disheartened that the city does not seem to have given it any thought. Thank you. Susan Rich, I am part of Friends of Lexington Avenue. Thank you.
Well, seeing as we had no public comment regarding this issue, I guess it's not a big deal. All right, so Jessica, you need for us to consider, you're asking us to consider whether the proposed addition of the loading zones and bicycle lanes as detailed in your memo, and also on those two additional sheets, A1 loading zones and A2 loading zone diagrams, for Biltmore Avenue, is consistent with city goals, policies, and adopted plans. You want us to consider reviewing the proposed design, consider and review public comments that have been received, and provide recommendations to staff on potential revisions to the proposed design, if any. And you need that by today so that you can communicate anything to DOT on Monday. Is that correct? Have a good handle on it?
Generally, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're not asking you guys for like a formal vote or anything. I think we would just like to hear, well, I guess if there's any general consensus on the proposal one way or the other would be helpful for us to be able to report back to the city manager.
Thank you. Okay, so we've had a few people kind of speak. We've heard from Sage and Megan, and just some questions from Stephen Lee. Gio or Ricardo or Ruth, do you folks have any comments on any of this? And maybe we can build some kind of understanding that Jessica can take with her. Go ahead, Ms. Ruth.
Jessica, thank you for doing your presentation. I have a number, I guess, of issues. I just feel like this was rushed to us. We really didn't have the time to study the report. I also know that a lot of people really would have liked to have commented on this and really didn't have the chance to do it. So I think that's unfortunate for whatever reason that comment period wasn't open. If we need to take a formal vote, I, for one, would vote for the loading zones, but I would vote against bike lanes. Thank you very much.
Ms. Ruth, before you go, would you support lowering the speed limit between Aston and, is that Hayward where it comes in?
Definitely.
Thank you. Okay. Gio, Ricardo? Gio's uncharacteristically quiet. No? Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and speak. My take on it, I don't know if this is a consensus take, Jessica, is that if you're talking about, like, I think I heard you mention a $25,000-$30,000 to restripe it. Like, if you striped it and we didn't like it, you'd be $25,000-$30,000 to put it back. If you're only talking about $25,000-$30,000, I would not be in support of. If that's what we're talking about, I would prefer you slow down and do a longer formal process to figure out exactly where everything was going to go to build that kind of community consensus that I don't think you currently have. Especially if you're only talking about, I mean, even if it's $50,000, that just seems to me to be, I know that that's money that would not be spent by the city and then suddenly would be spent by the city, but that seems to be prudent. Gio, go ahead. I knew you were going to say something.
Well, I think what you just brought up is it's a process that's being rushed so quickly. I would have liked to have seen other alternatives. I am concerned about the proposal of if we add bike lanes, that they be used by people with disabilities. That's a huge conflict. It's right now what I'm seeing with what I saw from Jessica. I think that's going to be exacerbate the congestion that's already in that section of road. I'm concerned about how quickly this is going without seeing any alternatives. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Thanks. I think, Brian, I absolutely agree. I think if that's the kind of money we're talking about, it's definitely worth just kind of, pumping the brakes a little bit and doing something more thorough, and getting a sort of broader process in place. I would also like to see more options. I think, my gut says that this would actually work, even as proposed. But the fact that we haven't had a good chance to review it and a good and that there aren't other options that we can think creatively about and speak creatively about is problematic. But yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that because it's a great point.
So Jessica, if I could summarize, I mean, I've read the public comments as best I could. I've seen the public comments we received. My take is that the consensus would be that the Downtown Commission, if we were to hold a formal vote, would not be in support of the bike lanes and loading zones as currently presented. And I mean, if you want me to take a vote, I can. And if our other commissioners want me to take a vote, I can. But I would prefer that the city of Asheville basically restripe it the way it is, and we have a longer process to do that. The one thing that I would say I would be in full support of, and I think the majority of the commissioners would be in full support of, would be lowering the speed limit between Aston and Hilliard. I don't think anybody's gonna. That makes no sense to me the way it is now, and I don't know why it would be 20. Go ahead, Gio.
I think it's very hard to drive 35 miles an hour through that area anyway. So, I mean, that's sort of a not, it's just, yeah, I fully support that.
I had the same thought. I read a lot of the comments too, and a lot of people talking about lowering the speed limit. I was like, I can never reach 35 miles an hour anyway. So, I mean, we can lower it, but I don't know that it really matters.
It would just help people coming from, if they're visitors and they're coming up from the village or that area where they're staying and they're coming into downtown, it just lets them know you need to slow down, you're coming into a congested area.
Yeah.
Do we need to take a vote, Jessica? Is that helpful to you at all? Or do you have what you need from us? You're muted, I think.
I think I have what I need. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else need to address this issue, or we beat it to death? Okay. Well, Jessica, thank you for your work and your availability and willingness to listen to us. We sure appreciate it, and we'll pitch in on any future updates that you might have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I'm already over time. I was hoping to get done a little early today. Downtown design guidelines. Todd and Robin and Will and I had a conversation earlier this week regarding kind of where we are. I've expressed some concerns regarding how we as a downtown commission are reviewing projects, and then how the DRC is reviewing projects, and kind of understanding our roles well, and what we're supposed to be looking at and not. And we all would like to have a better set of guidelines that we could spring off of. Both, we have all these different policies, documents that we use, the comp plan, the master plan, you know, the multimodal plan, different corridor studies and things like that. And the way we left it is that we know that we need to do a more comprehensive project at some point in the future, we being the city of Asheville. But until that happens, we all need to do, or at least I know I need to do a better job of speaking in the terms of the guidelines that we have, and understanding and reviewing those projects. So that's an ongoing thing. We're going to do some intermediate steps of, I'm going to do a little bit more work on that matrix that Dana developed for us from some stuff that Stephanie had for the Downtown Commission, and then a similar one for the Design Review Commission, so that we know when we can kind of push on people, because I know I have been frustrated with the process, and I know some other the developers have been frustrated with the process and feeling like that, or seeing a level of predictability on what we're going to be looking at and what we're talking about. Now, if that makes no sense to any of you, I'm happy to explain it further, but I'm pretty sure Ricardo knows exactly, Gio know exactly what we're talking about, because it has just been very frustrating for the designers and for the reviewers at both this commission and the DRC, in some of the projects that we've been pushing on. And even when they've been a success, was something that I would consider to be a success, the process itself has, I felt like that it was difficult to communicate to the applicant what it was we were going to be looking for, and what we're wanting from them. And that's really what I'm trying to get to, is that I want a more transparent process with some more objective guidelines that are clearly stated to the applicant before they get to us, so that they don't, at least if they act surprised, it's on them. Does that make sense to everybody? Kind of what we're talking about and doing. And I know that's a little more difficult when we're talking about things like what we look at in terms of broader policy initiatives with the Downtown Commission, but I still believe that we can do a better job of communicating to applicants the kinds of things that we're looking for. So I just wanted to let you know that we've been having those discussions. Updates and reports. I'm going to go ahead and jump onto those. Stephen Lee, are you talking about that at all?
Again,
DRC?
yeah, very quickly. So the Design Review Committee met on July 21st. We had 2 items we reviewed, some basic exterior rehab on 58 North Lexington. And the second project was the new micro housing proposal between Aston and Sawyer Streets. It's basically 2 7-story buildings and one floor building rehab. And that's what we reviewed. There's information on the DRC page. I think the designs on these, it's a large project obviously, but the designs were mostly well received. If anybody else has comments that's on the DRC to share on that.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, and we did review the Rankin substation, but everybody knows about that. So
yeah, you'd think we were in support of it the way people are yelling at us. I thought we were fairly clear. Asheville Downtown Association, Megan.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I might have mentioned this last month, but we are going to embark on our walkability study. Again, this year, we used to do it every other year. We did not do one in 2020 or 2021. And this is really a review of generally the pedestrian experience in downtown. And we collect the data through an app that was built by the city's GIS department. And it looks at everything from sidewalk obstructions to tree trimming needed, trip hazards, lighting, all of those things. And we've worked with the Public Works Department to come up with those issues. I'm going to put a link in the chat because it would be awesome to have some downtown commissioners volunteer to be part of that process. We'll give you 2 weeks so you can do it at your own leisure when you have time. But it's, I think, a great way to really get out and really think about the pedestrian experience. We also like to think about it and look at it for folks with disabilities. So if you know of anyone who might be able to help us in that regard, I think that's a really important perspective to get as well. Candidate forum, we're looking to do a candidate forum for mayoral and city council candidates. Right now, it's just like juggling, trying to find the right date because there are other forums already scheduled and things like that. But as soon as we have that scheduled, I will let you know. Hopefully you can attend. And if you have topics you want us to consider asking these candidates, please let us know. We do focus on those candidates because they do tend to make the decisions that are most impactful for downtown. We're also going to be
bringing about land swaps.
I'm sure that will come up. We're also looking to, we will be bringing back our Building Our City speaker series. Y'all might remember that from pre-COVID. We had a lot of awesome speakers come in and talk about topics that are relevant to downtown and the community as a whole. The Grove Arcade Public Market Foundation, thank you, Ruth, will be our presenting sponsor, and we'll be working with Urban 3 on content. So we're looking at like topics like solutions to homelessness, obviously really important, small infill development, the importance of investing in downtown. So again, you know, if you have topics you'd like us to consider or want to be a part of that, please let me know. We're looking to do one in October and then quarterly in 2023. And we have a Downtown After 5, August 19th, awesome band from Austin, and then an awesome local band. Please come out. And then if it's cool, I'm just going to roll into homelessness. Yep. Okay. So just a couple of points on homelessness. I'm sorry I didn't send a report, but the couple of main points here that everyone knows that the city, county, and Dogwood Health have contracted with the National Alliance to End Homelessness to study unsheltered homelessness in our community. They are currently in phase 1, which is data collection and needs assessment. I'm also going to drop a link to a survey in the chat that the Alliance has put out for public input. Hopefully you all will do that and share that with others. There's also some meetings occurring. I'll be part of a business group meeting next week to talk with the Alliance about, you know, issues that are being brought forth by the business community. The continuum of care funding is that deadline has been set. The city, of course, works on that. I think it's about almost $2 million that we're eligible for permanent supportive housing and other projects. And lastly, more good news, or good news at least, I suppose, is that they're hiring, I believe, for 3 new positions in the homeless strategy division. So I think that's an important step that the city is taking to build that department up so that they can make more impact in the community. And I think that's it. I'll drop those links in the chat.
Thank you. That's awesome. Andrew's not here, so skip that one. And we are not going to do a downtown update report because we kind of just covered everything anyway. And we'll circle back to Dana when she returns. Sage, did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
I'll share a couple things. I think Megan just did a great job of several of the items, and then you, of course, have already heard about the substations and the bike lanes, which are 2 hot topics related to downtown. I'll share that we have an update on the Portland Loo. There will be a Portland Loo installed, and the kickoff process first meeting was just this week, maybe last week. And the costs have kind of jumped around since the first bid, so we're getting them bid again. There will be one, it's College and Rankin, where there's a temporary restroom reportage on right now. And once we know those final costs, the remaining funds will be used to update or work on the other remaining bathroom facilities in downtown. We're just not able to say a number yet. The original proposal was for 2 Portland Loos, but along with the process, as the cost had more than doubled, I think we've removed it just to 1. So good update there. 24-hour bathrooms are coming soon. And Megan was just talking about the study. We do expect to have this study back November, December on all of our issues around mental health and unhoused and our needs in the community and just the full needs assessment. And so Megan's right, we're staffing up in preparation so that we can move quickly. And I know you guys are running over, so I'm happy to answer any questions, but that'll be it for my updates today.
Go ahead, Megan.
Just a quick, any talk about the 29 Hayward Street restrooms?
Yes, excuse me. So we are going to keep them closed. Actually, I was just pulling up the email. We're going to keep them closed at this point. So we're doing a facilities study for the entire city, all of our facilities, including our public restrooms and that APD space, all of it. So once we have that study back, which is like 7 to 8 months out, it may mean working on those bathrooms again. But because there's not active personnel or anybody in that building right now, they're not open at all. And they still have some issues that need repair. So not yet, maybe in the future.
Regarding the substation, very quickly, I know the substation was going to be, you know, a level 1 or whatever project, and is not really required to come to this body as a topic as such necessarily, but I would humbly suggest that this is a proper forum for public comment for that. So, you know, whatever happens with that project, I think this needs to be a stop along the way as the city is reviewing options with Duke. I don't know where that project is right now. I know it kind of, you know, they backed up.
I'm happy to update. There is a little backing up. So the community meetings were canceled yesterday. And we have agreed that we issued a statement. We've agreed to revisit and see if there's some better outcomes and less negative impacts. I think ideally we'd see a GIS system, but those costs are so extravagantly significant, can be twice as much, but better footprint, better economic gain. There's all these reasons, but we are going to, I think they're going to come back to design review with a new idea. There'll be whatever the new idea becomes at the neighborhood meetings. It will come back to Downtown Commission as well. I've requested that it be a stop. And I know you just mentioned you could hear it and weigh in, but I would actually appreciate significant feedback from this body and even a vote. I think that would help me. I can't speak for council. And then after that, it would go to PED, Planning and Economic Development, which I'm also on, and then council. So there's several meetings left, and there's a lot of rework right now.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And just so the public understands, the previous proposal has, for all intents and purposes, been removed. Whatever we see will be something very different, I think, than what was presented to the Design Review Commission.
They did hire a designer, and I hear those designs would be at earliest like September, October. So
okay, thank you.
Few of the design review board.
Perfect. Thank you. That's the kind of. Okay. Are there any other items that we need to discuss? Todd, you're not Dana, but you did a masterful job. Thank you. All right. If there are no further items, I would like to make a motion that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second. This is Guillaume.
Thank you. All in favor, log off, and I'll see you soon.